Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like humanity, at least, you look at the health of the United States and Canada too, but especially the United States, and you're like, we are in a state of emergency. Like it is the level of obesity, and even now that there is a shaming of having a conversation about fat and the experience of putting on weight on your body, and I really think that we need to keep having this conversation because it's important. It's important to be able to learn about what foods do us good. Like I think about the explosion of the Whole30 as a diet, which really the whole essence of that quote unquote diet was to eat foods that were whole. Like just eat foods that came as you're eating them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of part of the problem sometimes is putting a diet label on things. But I also agree that the pendulum tends to swing in extremes, as we know, on all things, not just in nutrition and health. But we are seeing this epidemic of obesity, and we know that obesity is an independent risk factor for just about every negative health outcome. Like that is a fact. But then the pendulum kind of started to swing in the opposite direction of, we can't talk about obesity, fat shaming, health at every size, which has some validity to it, but it was blown out of proportion, in my opinion, and taken incorrectly. Just like you were saying, there's an element of food trauma and emotional eating and, food dysregulation that is part of nutrition and eating. And a lot of people have an unhealthy relationship with food. And so part of that is that we shouldn't fat shame, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make being a healthy weight the optimal goal. It's about how do we talk about that and how do we achieve that. It's kind of, the devil is in the details, but it's important to not just completely disregard talking about weight and aiming for a healthy weight just because there's this other issue. Going over it and ignoring it is not the solution either. And so there's some important nuance. And that's actually part of what we have found to be really helpful to track things that aren't weight sometimes. Like if you have a history of being overweight, then most likely I can guarantee there is some issue, some disordered eating and some emotional eating involved. That's very common. And so kind of an unhealthy relationship with food, these kind of binge and restrict cycles.
I see that a lot.
Yeah, it is a real issue, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't still be working towards weight loss for those individuals. It's just adjusting your approach. And that's where we see kind of focusing on a different metric, whether that's glucose or whether that's your fast insulin level or whether it's just being able to walk up, a flight of stairs. Maybe it's a specific goal you want to achieve and less energy on the actual number on the scale. That can help remove some of that emotional aspect of it, because sometimes we have to dissociate between like the body image pressure or like obsessing over the number on the scale that fluctuates by a million different things and can lead to frustration and, yo-yo dieting. So sometimes we really have to find that more sustainable approach and identify some of that like intrinsic why. Why is it that you want to lose weight? If we keep asking why 5 times, eventually we usually get to a root why. And typically for people, it's that they want to be healthy and play with their grandkids, or they don't want to die from diabetes complications at 60 like their dad did. Your why is going to be much more motivating to keep front and center than having that kind of like weight loss goal that you keep trying to achieve and then regaining and going back and forth.